Karan, I remember when you started your career in one of my first interviews with you, you said you were very influenced by the Suraj Barjatya type of film. And so that was the genre of film that you were aspiring to make. And now we have a Karan Johar type of film. So how do you see this change completely? Like if you see a film that's appealing to the international audience, that's glossy, it's known as a Karan Johar type of film. So what's your take on that?
I mean, I don't know really. Things just fell into place. I don't think I designed the film for it to work with a diaspora audience. I just went with, you must understand that Aditya Chopra and me actually came from a zone which was combating films that were working at that time and the ethos of the cinema in the 90s. And Lagaan and Dil Chahta Hai hadn't yet arrived. So the change in syntax in modern Indian cinema hadn't really happened. You know, so Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, Dil To Pagal Hai, Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge were considered the cool films at that time.
Right.
Because these were young filmmakers who brought in a certain sensibility, a certain aesthetic, blended it with the old world charm of the movies, with some of the value system, with some of the what we know as filminess. So I remember like in Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, a sequence that I cringe even while watching today is when the little child breaks into a prayer to delay the wedding, and it's a namaz, and you know a Hindu prayer is being delayed by a Hindu wedding is being delayed by a Muslim prayer. And my father said, "ये बहुत अच्छी sequence होगी because UP CPCI में ताली बजेगी." So I felt like that was the sensibility. I come from a zone where you felt, I was told things like put a buffer scene after interval because you know the audience is still walking in. That was a single screen time. Right. Or like don't put a song in your pre-climax because you know people will get up and walk out. So there was this whole information I had in my head, and I just knew what I knew. I grew up in a certain zone. I grew up with the passion of the movies in my head, and I gave my own aesthetic. Now those films started working with an Indian audience as well as a diaspora audience, but I never designed it like that. My film would work in the UK, United Kingdom, or in America. And I like beautiful things. I love the glamour of the movies. I like good-looking faces, good-looking things, and good-looking people. You could call me, it could be vanity or insanity, depends how you look at it really. It really is your perception. That is something that I love, and I'm unapologetic about it. I've never apologized. Like Shabana Azmi called me, and I'll never forget this conversation, right after she saw Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, and she said, मैं आपसे बहुत बड़ी प्रॉब्लम थी मेरी आपकी फिल्म के साथ कुछ कुछ होता है. तो वो जब छोटे बाल थे और वो खूबसूरत नहीं थी तो उससे अच्छी नहीं लगी. बड़े बाल हो गए और खूबसूरत लगने लगी and he fell in love with her. Why? What do you have to say? Say something. So I was silent. I said, I'm really sorry. I don't have anything else to say. Because there was no explanation. It was quite stereotypical and stupid. In fact, all of Kuch Kuch Hota Hai is quite silly actually. Because those 8 letters that mother leaves for her child is really borderline idiotic. Because what did she write in the first 5 letters? Gigi, gu, 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 what would that child know and understand? I love the way I said, मैं ये 8 चिट्ठियाँ छोड़ के जा रही हूँ. What did she write in those first 7 letters? Forget anything else. What would that poor child understand? And I thought it was a genius breakthrough in 1997 when I scripted. I thought, what a moment, 8 letters a mother is leaving for her while dying. Yeah. And how did she presume that Kajal would be waiting and ready? And you know, I mean, it was really presumptuous of her. And the whole plot is so banal and stupid that I'm really, really sorry. But what do I say? I did it with a lot of conviction at that time. And then my second film is the same film as my first. Actually, it's the same person who's bringing somebody or somebody together. It starts with a flashback. The interval point, Hrithik Roshan holds a thali and says, "मैं वापस ले आऊँगा भैया को and भाभी को." It's the same. The thali and the letter of the Kuch Kuch Hota Hai interval point is the same. It's the same movie. It's just that I really believed it with all my gut, you know. And then I don't blame anyone for giving me this tag of being bubblegum or making family films, and you know. And these films, I just brought in, I think, a sensibility and music and an aesthetic that appealed to people who wanted to go to the movies and have a good time. So
True.
I don't know if I answered your question. I think I just conducted an opera. I'm not so sure where this all started. Indu looks flummoxed. As do I, yes. Ask me another question, I'll give you a totally different reply.
Okay. You mentioned Dil Chahta Hai.
Yeah.
And I also remember in another interview with you, you said that you were very jealous that Farhan made this really cool film because you thought you were the coolest at that time.
I mean, like, I knew Farhan as a kid, and everyone thought was like what will ever happen to Farhan Akhtar? Poor Ani auntie. Like, she's produced this child, and like, what's gonna happen to him? Like, nothing is gonna happen to him. So when I realized that he was making this film called Dil Chahta and it was releasing in my head in the same year as Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum, I felt really bad for him. I was like, poor fellow. Like, why is he doing this to himself? You know, he's made a film, and Amir Khan, has he lost the plot? He's agreed to do this. You know, and then someone told me, oh, Amir's doing a film called Lagaan, which about a man in a dhoti and some cricket match, and it's 4.5 hours long, and it's about Lagaan, which I didn't know what it meant also that time. I said, what is Lagaan?
Yeah.
So I said, tax. I said, they're making a film about tax. And I was like really upset that they're even coming in the same year. So I said, this is a clean sweep for me. Yeah. I'm like, I'm going to come in the end and people are going to just give me an ovation. And I realized very young that you should never, ever, ever have thoughts like this, because it can kill you and kill your career and never get you back on track. I was like, when I saw Lagaan, and I was like, oh my God, this is really, I can't make this movie. It's genius. It's fantastic. We were rooting for it like watching a cricket match at the end of it. And I was like, shit, this is what they were making. Like, and then I went and saw Dil Chahta Hai, because Zoya and Farhan are two kids I grew up with. And I was like, okay, now I'm going, this poor boy has made this movie, I must go. And I thought I had made the coolest film in India, by the way. Kuch Kuch Hota Hai. I even made Shah Rukh wear that chain that said cool, which was actually the uncoolest thing in the world to do, but at that time I thought it was really cool. And then I saw Dil Chahta Hai, and I realized that I had made the most uncool movie, and the coolest film was really Dil Chahta Hai. The tonality, the dialogue, the structure, the music, the energy, the vibrancy, the screenplay. And I just felt limited and very, very stupid. And I thought, now how do I become cool? So I stopped doing things. I said, I'm going to write Kal Ho Na Ho, and I'm going to really write a cool film. Till the last 20 minutes of the film is not so cool, but up to a point, it's kind of cool in my way.
Yeah.
So I realized that you get knocks on your head when you don't acknowledge the brilliance of your contemporaries. If you don't watch something and really say it's brilliant, how do you get better yourself? And I think that's the delusion most of us in the movie industry have. We don't acknowledge somebody else's brilliance. Because I feel the only way you can get better is somewhere if you acknowledge somebody else is better than you. And it's very possible they're all better than you. You know, but you can also be good. It's not that it's going to stop you, but you have to start acknowledging somebody else's good work.
So have there been other films like that you've looked at and said, you know, this is the sort of film that I should have made, or
no,
I
don't think anything that somebody else has made I can make.
Okay.
Very honestly, when I saw Rang De Basanti, I was like, how do you make a film like this? I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to shoot a film like this. When I saw Tare Zameen Par, I knew that was a film that was beautiful and emotional, but again something I'm incapable of scripting. Or Chak De India, Udaan. When I saw Udaan, I saw it in a hotel room in London. I watched it on a DVD, and I stood up on my bed at 2 o'clock in the morning and clapped. And I was like, what a beautiful film. How beautifully it's written, how convincingly it's told. I don't think I'm capable of that tonality only. I mean, I am a little over the top, as you all are very aware, and happily so. That's the sur and that's the tone that I take, and there is something that I'm sure that I can do that they can't.
Yeah.
Like when I saw Lage Raho Munna Bhai, I think it's genius screenplay. That idea itself is sheer genius.
Yeah.
Now you have to get that idea, and
Yeah.
to get that idea you have to have that mind, and we all have different minds.
True,
you know, but
true.
I don't think I could have ever seen, I've never seen a great film and felt that I could have made it, because it's never going to come from me.
So now tell me, when, like, you know, Karan Johar recently promoted King of Theseus. You are now doing the same with Lunchbox. These are films that would not normally get the sort of release that they will get now because your names have attached to it. Do you feel that somewhere you're paying a debt to the film industry for those mainstream, big budget, very glossy films you made?
No, I'm not apologetic about it at all.
Okay.
I'm very proud of every film I've ever made. But I think if you have to kind of be with the times, and if it's a film, and I saw Lunchbox and I see commerce in Lunchbox.
Yeah.
I'm not promoting a film which is allegedly or rumored to be art house. I don't think it's an art house film at all. Firstly, I don't believe in this term.
Yeah.
I believe in India you don't have that divide. You do have that divide in the West. There is genuinely an art house film and there's genuinely a mainstream film. And because there's genuinely an audience for that art house film and there's a genuine audience for a mainstream film. In India, we have one audience. I mean, and you will, yes, there is of course a difference in demographic, etc., and all those surveys and studies will tell you that. But to me, when I saw Lunchbox, I thought it was an exceptionally connective love story, and I feel that there's nobody in this room or anywhere, anybody I know who won't connect to that love story. So I'm not endorsing it because I want that chop of also kind of putting my money or my muscle into a film that is going to be review friendly, critic friendly, intellectual. I believed in the movie. Like there will be a lot of great films I've seen at festivals that I would say great, but I don't want to touch it, you know, because I feel nothing. When I saw Lunchbox, I was moved, and when they asked me to be a part of it, I happily agreed because I liked the film not for its alternate strengths, but for its connective strengths.
Right, right. Now we all know that as a South Bombay boy growing up, you always denied your Bollywood antecedents, as it were. When did you fall in love with Bollywood actually?
Oh, I was obsessed by it when I was 8. I mean,
But
I just lied because it was not cool living in Malabar Hill to say you liked Hindi movies.
Okay.
Because nobody would talk to you. You know, when you said my father, when I told everybody my father was a businessman because it wasn't cool. When you filled in those forms, I never said film producer. Because he made a film called Muqaddar Ka Faisla, which had I mean, a really strange kind of film it was. And there was a big poster up in Worli and it said Yash Johar's Muqaddar Ka Faisla. And it was a very embarrassingly bad film. And no one I knew even went to see it. So when they asked me, was that your dad? I said, no, that's another Yash Johar, I have nothing to do with it. So I was like completely in denial because the movies weren't considered cool.
Yeah.
The kids I grew up in snooty Malabar Hill were like, they were not interested. What I was dancing to Hindi film songs in my bedroom alone. That was a separate thing altogether. Because my obsession with Hindi cinema went back like to when I was 6 and 7 and 8. I loved the movies. I used to take my maids and my drivers with me because nobody else would come with me. So I used to come and watch films again and again and again, sing the songs, have posters up. That was my silent obsession. I didn't even let my parents know how obsessed I was. But of course I put up this face because if you had to blend, it's like, you know, living up to the Joneses. I mean, you have to do, when in Rome you do what the Romans do, and I was doing exactly that. Things changed only when I went to college, when Agnipath released, my father's produced film. And it was a cult kind of film where people thought it was kind of cool. So that time I happily acknowledged my father as a film producer. And I said, oh, it's my film. Very proudly, because you would gain friends then like that, and that's how I did. Because it was kind of cool to know Amitabh Bachchan because he was the man, he was the dude I mean, he was Vijay Dinanath Chauhan of Amitabh Bachchan of Agnipath. So, and then it was really exciting. Then it got really exciting after that because cinema also changed, its entire tonality changed, the way an audience, today it's the coolest thing to be, you know, in the movies. So it wasn't like that when I was growing up.
Now in your films, there are always these very, of late, earlier they used to not be, this complex relationship happening, and you always manage to find a solution for it. Would you call that escapist cinema, the sort of film that you make?
Solution as in say, like which film are you talking? Because
Or
my
like,
solutions are not really path-breaking.
Like let's say whether it is Kabhi Alvida Na Kehna, whether it is My Name is Khan.
See, Kabhi Alvida Na Kehna actually is what the solution was should have happened 3 years earlier than what I made. I think I kind of juiced it too much in the last 3 years. I made them suffer and pine for no reason.
Yeah.
The solution is like if you're in a loveless marriage, you have to end it somewhere. If you don't, like if it's going to torture you and torment you, then it's a very simple solution. Somebody told me you're endorsing infidelity. I said, how do you endorse something that's already sold out? So it's like it's happening, it's rampant, it's around you, and I told a story that I told.
Yeah.
But I think I made Rani too guilty, and I pushed that's another film. That's a film I want to make again. And none of the solutions, or as you say, the climax of the movies are really anything new or novel, really. It's not something that I ended like, to me I'm proud of Ek Mein Aur Ek Tu's ending, because when it ended like that, that's the way it does happen in life. You know, that's how relationships end. They end sometimes where two people don't land up together. We like to have happy endings in our movies. Pun not intended. But at the end of the day, it's really all about like choosing I think the way Shakur directed that film is like he made them not get together, but also gave an audience a feeling of positivity towards the end. So I like that kind of end. To me, I reacted to that script because of that end.
Is there any scene you wrote for any one of your films that you couldn't film for some reason? And what as a filmmaker, what would it be that would stop you from shooting a particular type of scene? What are the sort of challenges?
There was interestingly a scene in Kuch Kuch Hota Hai. There's a scene in the summer camp portion, the second half, where actually I voiced Anjali, as in Kajal's character, when he comes and says that congratulations, when he finds out that she's engaged to Salman, and he turns around and says, congratulations, are you happy? And she looks at him, she says, are you happy? He says, yeah, I'm happy. And she says that you're happy because you're a spineless man. And she says, you never knew your heart then, you don't know your heart now. She says, 10 years ago, you didn't know you loved me. Today, you're not telling me you love me, and you're pretending to be happy. She says, grow a spine, get perspective. You love me today, you're not saying it, and if you said it, things would change. And it was a very dramatic scene where she actually voiced what was actually wrong in the construct of the film. Because he actually is, what he says, hum ek baar jeete hain, ek baar marte, is actually completely not true to his own character. He's talking nonsense. Because when he says this, he's not actually living that line. So that's what she says. She says, you say, na, ek baar jeete hain, ek baar marte, pyar ek baar hota hai. These are your thoughts and they're all wrong. But I just felt I was completely crushing Shah Rukh's, and in those days, I had to think he's my hero. And I was actually crushing the heroism and the perception of a hero in mainstream India. She was crushing the very ideologies that we believe heroes must have. And that's why I copped out. I completely copped out. And it was a fabulously written scene. A scene I was exceptionally proud of. And finally, I had to take the ambiguous path by saying, Kuch Kuch Hota Hai Rahul tum nahi samjhoge. Which was, what does that mean? It's actually really stupid. Again, but it became a buzz line because of the title. But actually, that's what she says. Kya matlab main samjha nahi hai. She says, Kuch Kuch Hota Hai Rahul, tum nahi samjhoge. And she walked out, and he says, Kuch Kuch Hota Hai Anjali, tum nahi samjhogi. Think of that scene, and when it gets translated for an international audience, I'm really ashamed and embarrassed. Because after all the drama, it says something happens you'll never understand. And he says something happens you won't understand. What does that mean? Like, how do you translate? So I actually, in the English translations, sometimes translations can be really, like I have to tell you this. We were at a party one day, and I won't mention names, but there was a lead actor who hosted a party and had some international people, music people that come in. There was a song somebody sang. I don't know if all you all know the song. Ye kya hua? I can't sing. Kaise hua? Kyun hua? Kab hua? That's the song.
Yeah.
Now this song Kyun hua? Chodo ye na pucho is the song. Now it's beautiful. It's poetic. It's on. But when you translate that song, he says to which he did. Ye kya ho? Where did it happen? What happened? When did it happen? Why did it happen? Where did it happen? Forget it. Don't ask. But after all those questions, that was the translation. So that poor musician who looked at him, he says, what does this mean? Because it says, ye kya hua, kyun hua, kab hua, kaise hua, chodo ye na pucho. After so many questions, why are you saying then why did you ask? So that's what happens, you get lost in translation a little bit. So that was the one scene, going back to what you asked, that I really felt would have actually ironed out some of the moralities that were incorrect with Kuch Kuch Hota Hai.
Yeah.
But I copped out because I was protecting my leading man.
True. Take us through the process of, because you write your own scripts. So from the first idea that comes to your head to finally making the film, what is the process that you go through for this?
I've been asked this question, I don't know how to answer it. It's really like things that come into your head. The thoughts you have, like you feel a space you want to get into. To me, when I wrote, everything is like a thought. Like when I wrote Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, it was two ideas I had, which I clubbed and made into one film.
Okay.
I was obsessed by Archie comics. I wanted to make my own Archie, Betty, Veronica love story. And then I saw a film called Jack and Sarah. It's a very tiny British film. That released, I think, way back in 96 or 95, I'm not too sure, about a man who loses his wife as she gives birth to a child, and then he's lumbered with, he doesn't know what to do. And so that was a trigger that I thought that, I can make a film about like a man wanting to find a relationship only so that he could raise his daughter along with another woman.
Yeah.
And I started developing both these stories, and I couldn't find the second half to both. And one day I had a eureka moment, and I said that why don't I just make both these stories, club them up, and the genius 8-letter idea came to me then, to kind of club the two ideas together. So that's how sometimes things happen, and that's how I even constructed Kabhi Khushi, which, as I said, has the same construct.
Yeah.
Kal Ho Na Ho is a film I saw called Amelie. I saw Amelie again 90, and I saw people talking to camera, intercuts. So I said, we've never told a story with this kind of modern usage of technology, of splitting screens, intercutting, talking to camera. Not that I copied anything of the film, I just took the syntax of Amelie and wrote Kal Ho Na Ho. Similarly with Kabhi Alvida Na Kehna, I'm obsessed by the idea of infidelity. I always wonder what a marriage goes through. And so I wrote that film as my ode to my own conceptualization of my film that I've loved, of a film that I love called Silsila. So yeah, it was pretty much that. And I believe very strongly that for Khan, I have to say that I believe very strongly that there was a misconception of a religion across the world because of conversations I had. And I felt that I wanted to tell a human tale that in my own way kind of represented a perspective. With Student of the Year, I just didn't want to say anything at all, which is pretty much what the film does. It doesn't say anything at all, but I just wanted to have fun at the movies. Like I've grown up loving songs, loving dances, loving the whole idea of color and glamour and glory, and I hadn't done that in a while. So I just said, let me have a lot of fun and take a whole bunch of newcomers and do it. So there is really, I mean, I don't know how other filmmakers research, they think. I have to go by my mood of the moment, like what I'm going through. If I'm going through, I think it's a big reflection of your personal space. Cinemas come from where you are in your head and heart. If you are going through a sinking low, it will show up on celluloid. If you are feeling in a celebration mood, it will show up on screen. It's a lot to do with your mind. I mean, films are eventually your own therapy. So it depends what you're up to in your head.
How do you gauge the pulse of the people when you're, when you are planning a film? Or are you just waiting for people to catch up with you? You say, I'll put this out there and get people to catch up with me.
No, there's a big science. You hear people, you hear opinions. You cannot live in your own, in isolation. No man can be an island and survive. You have to hear people. I read every review, every opinion ever written about me. Bad, good, indifferent, I read everything. Because I believe everyone, and we have these conspiracy theories in our industry that, sabotage and people are negative. Nobody cares. Everyone's got an opinion, they're saying it. I mean, and I'm not one of those filmmakers that will scoff at critics and say that, why should I care. I care very deeply about what people say. And when I go wrong or right, and I understand in a mainstream space how their mind is skewed, so I kind of account for that. I also, in films that are made for a certain kind of critical appreciation, and it doesn't meet with that, then you want to know why. Yeah. So I'm all about opinions, and the only way you can suss out the pulse of the people is by hearing the people. Sure. You can't think that you're above it, you're not. Yeah. We're all eventually selling something. So if you don't get adequate audience feedback, which is your cinegoer base, you're going to be lying in some kind of deluded ball and go nowhere in life. So when I have a trailer or I have a song, I have a group of youngsters who work in the office, I call them all in and make them hear the song or see the trailer, take their feedback, and I can study faces and tell if they're really liking it and then being polite. When a song is playing and by the body language of somebody if they're liking it or not. It's little things like that give, and then you make mental notes. The biggest understanding is when you stand outside a preview of your film, you can tell with the body language of people walking out. They might come and say, congratulations, they've hated it. Or they'll come and suddenly deviate and say, who shot the film? I've done that myself. Who's the cinematographer? And I'm like, that's not the first thing you ask somebody when you walk out of a film. Yeah. Or they tell you, that location, was that Egypt? And I'm like, yeah, amazing, beautiful. And then somebody else has come in and they've gone. And when they've liked the film, you can totally tell. When a preview theater goes empty, boom, suddenly, that they've all hated it. When they linger on and talk about it and discuss it, the film has stayed with them. You have to know these things. I just believe that you cannot be above feedback. It's just not the way to be.
But tell me, isn't this a fairly recent phenomenon? When I say fairly recent, I mean say the last 5 to 7 years, that the polarization between the critics, what they say about a film, and what the box office success of a film is like humongous now. I mean,
that's on few films, Indu. Very few films that there will be a grand divide. There will be that big event film that maybe is so hardcore mainstream but entertaining that may not appeal to critics. But more or less, I think if it's a great film and it's an event film, I think even a critic, it's the way internationally a superhero film or a disaster film or a sci-fi film is reviewed differently than from an art house film. Yeah. But I firmly believe that 8 out of 10 times, people are on the same page. You make a great film, like a film that will make money, like a Three Idiots, say. it was more or less reviewed fantastically across. And it's a large, huge blockbuster. So, I mean, it's quite synergized in a sense. And I think that we tend to think it's polarized because we choose to believe it to make ourselves feel good. Yes, the polarization is in the audience space for sure. There definitely is a huge divide. So, the audience is polarized, but I don't find there's such a big difference between the audience and the critic base, because I think more or less, I think they get it right.
You know, this trend of this South Indian film remake, I can't see Dharma Production. Is Dharma Production going to do something like that? You know,
No, you must see it because it may happen.
Yeah.
We made Agnipath. I mean, we remade.
But that was your
I
own
made some
film.
glorious remarks 5 years ago that I'll never make a remake. I don't know why I said that.
Okay.
It just had absolutely no basis. And cut to, I was making Agnipath. So I've decided to just keep shut.
And Dharma Production also has now sort of changed a bit in the way the films that they make. You're experimenting more, not experimenting as in experimenting with films, but moving out of what is like your comfort zone totally.
Yeah, we're trying because I think the attempt is to vasten the base.
Okay.
Definitely. So when we make, like it started I think a little bit with Wake Up Sid when we decided to, you know, produce the film because I loved the screenplay.
Yeah.
I'm really keen to make different films, but I do feel that they should be viable and made in the right kind of money. And it's not a film that, I would never ever produce a film that I felt I did not have a certain kind of audience that will back it and that it was making sense economically. Yes, I would like to make all kinds of films, work with all kinds of, from esoteric minds to very mainstream ones, the entire gamut. But for me, it's very critical because we are not a studio really, and we're neither are we like just a production house.
Right.
We're somewhere in between.
Yeah.
We're kind of living a dual Gemini existence. Yeah, and so for me in this zone, it's very critical that whatever I do, I should at least feel that there is a certain viability aspect to it. But yes, while I say that, I'm very excited to dabble in different genres. I want to do that because even I'm fed up of doing the same thing. Like there's only that many kind of mainstream endeavors that can come out of one production base.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not that I'm going to drastically change and adapt to and go the other way altogether because we have bills to pay.
So, what's your next film? Is it going to be something totally different from what you've done personally, or is it going to
I
be?
don't know. Every time I think I've done something different, no one else seems to think so. I mean, I thought like I was doing something really different when I directed Khan, but I really felt that my own name kind of didn't. You know, I don't know. Somehow I just feel that no one really thinks I'm doing anything different. They still think that I've made another Kuch Kuch Hota Hai or a Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gham. So I've stopped saying I'm doing something different. I haven't decided really. I'm oscillating between two films right now.
Okay.
Whether it's different or not, as I said, I have no clue.
But are they like more or less the same genre, as it were, or are they like two? But maybe you could one day marry the two ideas or something, as you did with Kuch Kuch Hota Hai.
As I said, I have no clue because now people say, why don't you make another Kuch Kuch Hota Hai? And so I'm like, how do you do that? And if I did that, then again they'll say I'm making the same movie. So I don't know whether I should listen to people about that in that zone, in that department. I think I'll just make something that I know I can do. The one thing I won't do is, I think, step out and go into a territory just to prove a point.
Okay. You know, in our promo, you said that the film industry is a very lonely place where there are people talk a lot, but there are very few conversations. Now, you live your life largely in the film industry. So, where do you get your emotional sustenance from?
We're a bunch of megalomaniacs. I mean, you know, everyone is really kind of all about themselves. Somehow the other people find a way of going back to talking about themselves in any situation. You could talk about like what's happening, whether it's a war in Iraq or the falling economy, the state of the rupee, or the disastrous crimes that are being committed, as we know recently. Somehow people will still take that conversation and talk about themselves. I've seen that happen a lot in the movie business. And that is something I don't think I do. I like to listen to people. Yes, you go through hurt, you go through pain, there are ups and downs in almost every equation. But I think rising above them and being the larger one is something I've got from my father.
Now, we all know that everybody talks to you, as you yourself have said, and you listen a lot. Tell us like 3 gossip things that we don't know.
3 gossip things? You were meant to sound intelligent today. Indu, what happened to you?
But you know, once in a while.
Suddenly you've become like something out of Zoom television. With no offense to Zoom, we love Zoom. Isko dekho. But what happened to you, Indu? All well? Haven't had your
Walk
fix.
the talk a little
Haven't had
bit.
your fix, have you? You have. Gossip that no one knows? No, I mean, obviously, if there are things no one knows, I'm not allowed to talk about it.
That'd be nice. What?
You can ask me, I can deny the rumor.
No, I wouldn't do that.
I'll deny it.
That, yeah.
Mera kya hai?
You know, talking of rumors, every little while we hear that you're getting married to somebody. Every little while there's this hangama that Karan is marrying Switzerland. Last, I think, was Rani Mukherjee, who turned out to be somebody else's girlfriend. But what's with these rumors?
I think, I'm 41 and not married, so there's always speculation about what's happening in my life. From my marital status to my sexuality, everything is always being talked about. I've been asked on talk shows, the ones that are even the emotionally connective ones. Everyone's asked me, the ones who feel that they can invade into your personal life. And that's fine, I have no problem, because as I feel, if you're a public figure, then you're open to all kinds of speculation and you're allowed to kind of be asked. And it's my prerogative to not talk about it.
Right. Which hat fits you the best of all the hats that you wear?
Well, the other are not hats. The only hat that really fits me is the hat of a director. The others are caps that are perks of that big hat I wear.
Now on Jhalak Dikhla we see you being very appreciative of the talent that is.
But what do you want me to do? They are celebrities apparently. I can't start bitching them out now on national television. We have to be appreciative. We get paid to be appreciative.
No. I sort of was going one step further.
Oh,
I said, will we see any of them also doing a Dharma film anytime soon? Anybody that has, struck you that way?
I should be saying politically correct things. So yes. Yes.
Otherwise,
because they're talented and good looking, and they should be given a platform.
And
Yes.
if you were off the record, then
Then who knows? I mean, it depends how good they are. I mean, if you see, there are a lot of them, like Sushant is a product of Jhalak.
yes.
So many of them after that actually have done well in the zone of television.
Now you introduced rapid fire to us, right? So we're going to do a little bit of rapid firing with you.
Really, that never happens to me at an interview.
Yes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to throw names at you, and I want you to tell me which song from your movie, not necessarily picturized from them, you feel suits them the most. Like if I say SRK, what would you say?
Kalona, the title song.
The title song.
But Shah Rukh and I both said that that's our song when we die. Like when Aaj Tak will play our funeral procession.
They'll play.
They will definitely have when I'm dead, it'll be like Har Pal Yahan Ji Bar Jio, and everybody will be in white with dark glasses on that song. It'll be quite nice.
Okay. Priyanka Chopra?
Her song Tinka Tinka. For my film, no, but just generally. I think I keep associating her from that song from Karam, I think it was called.
Yeah.
Tinka. She sings it a lot also.
Yes, she does actually.
So that song just comes to my mind when I think of it.
Would you think Priyanka?
Yeah.
Salman?
That Bodyguard song. I always think that Sabka Bhai, there's one line in that song. There's one Bhai reference in that song which I like. I don't know. Hamara body. Because I think that his thing is that he has that. Yeah, he has that protective kind of vibe. I think of him and I think of that song.
Okay. Deepika?
The very first that Dhoom Tana Danana, that song I used to like her in Om Shanti.
The one from Om Shanti.
From Om Shanti.
Yeah. Amir Khan?
Always Papa Kehte. That is just because it was the first song he ever sang. And Papa Kehte to me is Amir Khan. I mean, it was like my memory of Amir Khan, where I remember watching the film right after I gave my ICSE examination. And it was just the song to sing. It was all kind of tying in with where we were in our lives at that time. So Papa Kehte to me is all about proving a point to your family that you can do something. So it has a larger resonance than just being a song.
Katrina?
Touch me, touch me, touch me, that song. Yes. Yeah, because I thought that was quite a song to say, touch me like that. Yeah. It was quite out there, I thought, at that time. And there were other words, feel me, touch me. That's the song, yeah.
Amitabh Bachchan?
I mean, there's so many songs. But to me, I think, when I think of him, I think of Neela Asman, because I remember being so surprised that he sang that song, and I love that movie so much. And because it's in Amit Uncle's voice, Neela Asman, and Rang Barse, both of them. I think.
Okay.
Kareena is that Suraj Barjatia song of hers, where she made I think 1 million faces a second.
That
Bunny Re, Bunny Re, Bunny. I thought, like, I got scared of her in that song. Like, she made so many, she made like a zillion faces in that song. I remember I tease her about it all the time. Like, you know, but I think she was going beyond the beat, and that never happens. Like, like the beat came later, her expression came before.
Madhuri?
I mean, Dhak Dhak, definitely. And Humko Aajkal Hai, Intezar. I mean, I remember trying to copy those steps also on my own.
Humko Aajkal Hai, Intezar? Wow.
So what?
No, I'm not saying anything.
It's nice.
Of course. I love the song. No,
tried the steps?
I haven't, but I love that music.
You must have tried a little bit.
No,
in your head.
In my head, yes. Head to everything.
Yeah.
Head everything.
I also didn't go beyond the head too much. But yeah.
Ranbir?
Batamiz Dil now. I mean, I think that's just the way it is.
And Aishwarya?
Barso Re Megha, isn't that her song? From, I somehow think of her when I
she's standing on that hill sort of and dancing. Yeah, right. Okay, now that we've gone through music, films and the other, we should have some dancing happening.
No, we can't dance now.
We know, we will not
No, I will also not
dance.
Do
Why?
I can't dance. I've not come prepared to dance. I can answer anybody's question. Dancing I'm not doing. I'm contractually bound to jhalak. Any kind of this leg only moves. Just like Priyanka has her international contract, I have a contract with Colors. I can only dance on that platform. And my pundit tells me between 6 and 9 I can't dance. I thought I had made the coolest film in India, by the way. Kuch Kuch Hota Hai. I even made Shah Rukh wear that chain that said cool, which was actually the uncoolest thing in the world to do, but at that time I thought it was really cool.